Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Liz, and in today's video I'm going to share with you 15 DIYs that I did for my honey/bee themed tiered tray. This is the first video of my 4-part summer releases slash summer tiered tray videos. Every Sunday for the month of May, I am going to release a new tiered tray theme and show you some DIYs that you can do to decorate your tiered tray for summer. There are so many themes for summer that I absolutely love, so I couldn't just pick one, so I have 4 different themes for you guys for the summer season. Make sure that you stick around to the end of the video because I will show you how I put all the tiered tray pieces in my tiered tray and how I decorate it, and you can see all the final projects in my tiered tray then. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our first DIY. So I had to pick up some honey dippers. I think they're so cute and I love the natural wood in them. I picked mine up from Amazon. I'll have a link in my description box. They were fairly inexpensive for the amount that you get, and I just thought this was so much fun. So I'm gonna do a little DIY with some hot glue and actually some makeup. So to make my faux honey, I just melted down some hot glue sticks in an old pan. Make sure that you're using things that you don't care if they get ruined. And then I crushed up some yellow eyeshadow that I had and mixed it in with the glue sticks, and this is how it turned out. So this first one was a little bit of trial and error, so I ended up just dipping my honey dippers into the glue and then putting them on this silicone mat that I had and leaving them there to dry. So I just did a couple where I dipped them into the glue and then let them dry on the silicone mat. And then for the others, I wanted the honey to look like it was dripping down the honey dipper. So I just put some of that glue on top, and then I had to figure out a way to set them up straight so that the glue could kind of drip down the honey dipper. So I had these extra little pot things that I was going to do a DIY with, and I just set them up like that so that the glue could slowly drip down the honey dipper, and I did several of them like this. Another thing that you could do that I found was you could put the glue on top, and then if it wasn't looking quite like how you wanted it, you could take your heat gun and heat the glue back up and kind of manipulate it to drip down the honey dipper. So I did that as well. I thought these turned out so cute. And then for these ones that had kind of that hot glue strings that I needed to fix, I just took my heat gun and heated up the glue, and I was able to manipulate the glue to be where I wanted it to be. Hopefully that makes sense. And I was able to kind of melt it all down and get the shape that I wanted and kind of fix all of those mistakes that I had on there just by heating that glue back up. Now I found these absolutely adorable little wooden bees on Amazon. I'll have them linked in my description box. They come with the little sticky adhesive on the back already, but I wanted my bees to sit flat, so I just easily peeled those off, added some hot glue, and then stuck them on a couple of my honey dippers. I love the faux book stacks, whether you're using real books and just removing the covers and painting them, or if you use the crates from Dollar Tree like I'm gonna do today. So again, I grabbed this crate from the Dollar Tree. I'm gonna paint it in my parchment colored chalk paint from Craftsmart. Any kind of cream or ivory color will do. This is the color that I'm going to be using for the majority of this video. I'm going to give the entire crate a good coat of that paint. And then I'm going to take some of this burlap ribbon that I had. I'm going to fray some of the edges. And then I'm just going to hot glue that around one side of my crate. And then I'm going to take some buffalo check fabric that I had. I'm going to cut it down to the size that I want it. Now, I wanted this fabric to look really worn and messy, so I'm going to fray the edges. I kind of tried to wrinkle it up as much as I could, and then I'm going to hot glue that right over the top of that burlap fabric. And then to finish it off, I'm going to take some yellow yarn that I had, and I'm just going to wrap it around the crate about 3 times, and then I'm going to tie it in a cute little bow, and then I'll cut off the excess yarn at the bottom. Now, I cut out a little honeycomb decal using my CRICUT. I ended up switching this out at the end for something a bit bigger because I just felt like the 3 little honeycombs was much too small. Now I'm going to take these rub-on transfers that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I thought these were perfect because they are gold and it matched with the theme of this video. I am going to cut out the letters to spell beautiful. So it's going to say B and then U and then T full. I thought it was really cute, and I'm just going to rub on all of these letters onto the one side of my crate. And then, like I said, I'm going to remove that honeycomb, and I'm going to put a much larger decal that I cut out with my CRICUT on it, and I felt like this just looked so much better, and this is how my little book stack turned out. I think it's so cute, and it's one of my favorites from today's projects. So today I am releasing my first summer collection over on my website. If you guys didn't know, I make and sell woodcraft kits, and just like these videos, I am doing 4 different releases, which I'm so excited. I couldn't pick just one thing to release, so I have 4 different themes for you coming every Sunday for the month of May. Today's theme, as you can tell, is going to be my honey/bee theme. You can get things like this really cute little gnome. So these kits come unfinished, so you can paint them and put them together the way that you like them and have your own version in your home. And this little honey jar is also in the craft kit set for the honey theme. I just think it's so much fun, and I love seeing how you guys finish them and put them together. So I will have my website linked down below. You can purchase everything individually. You can purchase the whole big bundle, or there will also be 2 mini bundles that you can purchase as well. So along with the gnome bee, which I think is absolutely adorable, I am going to show you 2 other of my kits and do a little DIY with those to put on my tier tray. So this honey jar I think is so much fun. All I'm going to do is give it a good coat of my parchment colored chalk paint, and then for the line at the top, just to kind of define the top of the jar, I'm just using some brown stain and going in that line. I'll paint the top portion of that honey jar yellow, and then for my honey words, I'm also going to stain those in my Craft Smart stain in brown. And then I also painted my little honeycombs in this yellow chalk paint. And then to assemble, what I would recommend is using a clear glue. You can use clear craft glue. I've used clear Gorilla Glue. Clear is probably the best, so that if you have any seeping glue come out from your pieces, you aren't going to see it, and it's going to be easier to clean up. And then I just use a end of a skewer stick to put my glue onto those smaller pieces. Like I said, then you're not having a ton of glue seeping through all of your pieces. And I just assemble it the way that I think it looks good, and that is it for my honey jar. And then I'm going to move on to our garland kit, which I just love this one. So I'm going to paint this honeycomb piece in some yellow chalk paint from Waverly, and once that's all painted, I'm going to paint this honey dipper, and I'm going to paint that with my parchment paint, and then I am going to paint it with my yellow chalk paint. And really, you can just paint these the way that you want it, the way that you think looks best. These are just the colors that I chose to do. And then I'll assemble it all using some craft glue. I'm just using the clear craft glue that I got from the Dollar Tree, so it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And I will just assemble all of my pieces with my end of my skewer stick to get the glue on my smaller pieces. And then I'm going to take some wood beads and I am going to paint half of them in my Craft Smart stain in brown. I just put them in this little plastic container, put the lid on it, and shook them all around. And then I'm just going to wipe up all the excess on a paper towel. And then I'm going to make 2 tassels for my garland. I'm just going to start by wrapping my twine around a piece of cardboard about 10 times. I'll tie a knot around the top portion, and then I'm going to string my beads on, just doing a pattern of the stain bead and the natural colored bead. I'll tie a knot around the top portion of my garland, and then I just wrap around multiple times around the top of that garland and tie a double knot, and then I'll attach my honey dipper on an excess piece of twine and tie that in a couple knots to make sure that that stays in place. And then I'm just going to do the exact same thing for the other side. I'll make a second garland and attach my honeycomb piece, and that is it for this garland for my tiered tray. So I found these mini rolling pins over in Hobby Lobby's woodcraft section. I see so many of these all over Pinterest, and I wanted to make some for my own, so I ran to Hobby Lobby and got a couple packs to make this DIY. So I'm going to take my rolling pins. I put painter's tape around all of the end pieces to make sure that they didn't get painted. I'm going to paint my rolling pins in my parchment chalk paint, in my yellow chalk paint, and then in my Craft Smart stain in brown. And then I cut out these decals using my CRICUT. I used the font 4 Seasons from CRICUT Access, and I just cut these out that says Farm Fresh, Buzz, and Honey Bee. I think these were so cute. And then I'm going to take some of this buffalo check ribbon. I'm going to put it on 2 of my rolling pins, and I just hot glued those down. And then I'm going to take some twine and make 2 really small twine bows. I just did a simple shoelace kind of bow to them, and I'm gonna hot glue those to the buffalo check ribbon. And then for my third rolling pin, I'm gonna take some twine and just wrap it around the other end of the rolling pin a couple times and tie it in a double knot. I'll cut off the excess, and that is it for my rolling pin DIYs. For this one, I'm going to take this little palette that you can get over at Dollar Tree, and then I'm also going to take these wooden mini flower pots that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to start by painting the palette in my Craft Smart chalk paint in parchment, and I just made sure to paint the entire thing. And then I'm going to take 2 of those mini wooden planters, and I'm going to paint those in my Waverly chalk paint in this yellow color. I believe it's called Maize. And I'm just going to give those one good coat. I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to tie it around the top portion of those little planters. And I'm also going to use that twine to attach it to the palette itself. I just went in between those planks of wood and tied a couple double knots. And then I did extra secure it with some hot glue towards the bottom of the planter to the palette. And then I'm going to take some white florals that I had. I'm just going to bunch them together, stick them down into the little planters. And then again, I'm just going to tie a couple little bows using some twine. I'll hot glue those to the front of the planters. And then I'm going to go in with some more of these adorable little wooden beads, and I'm just going to hot glue a couple of those down, and that is it for this DIY. Now for this one, I got this jar over at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to give it one good coat of my yellow maize chalk paint, and then once I have that all painted and dried, I'm going to go back over it with my parchment colored chalk paint. I wanted some of that yellow to poke through the parchment color just to tie in a little bit of cute yellow to it. And once all of that paint is dry, I'm going to go over it with this decal that I cut out using my CRICUT, and I'm just going to stick it on the top and then kind of drag it down so it covers a good portion of that jar. I just made sure all of that was stuck down to the jar, and then I found these absolutely adorable florals over at Hobby Lobby. I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but I just imagine these being the little pollens that bees carry around, and I just thought that they were perfect for this DIY. I just stuck those down in the jar. I will attach the little metal piece that was around this jar when I picked it up from Dollar Tree, and that is it for this DIY. I think this is so super adorable. Now for this one, I picked up this birdhouse from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint it in my maize color chalk paint, and I'm just going to give this one good coat. After all of the yellow is on it, I'm going to go in with some of my brown stain, and I'm just going to use that to kind of distress it around all of the edges and sides. And then I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to add some hot glue around the hole in the front, and I'm going to add the twine around that hole. And then I'm not sure what happened to the footage, but I did also add twine to the little perch on the front. And then as well, I added some of my honeycomb vinyl decals to it. Again, I'm not sure where that footage went of me putting those on, but I put some of those on, and then I also added some of my little wooden beads, and that's all you gotta do for this DIY. Can you have a bee themed video without making your own little beehive? So what I'm gonna do is grab one of these terracotta pots that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to do this really simple and really easy, just going to hot glue some twine all the way around it. Like I said, you're just going to wrap and glue that twine all the way around your planter, and when you get to the top, you're just going to continue to add some glue and glue that twine all in a circle on the top. I took a black paint pen and I drew a circle on the front of the little beehive, and I colored that in with the paint pen as well. And then I'm going to take some more twine and just hot glue that around the black circle so that it looks like a little opening to the beehive. And then to finish it off, I added one of my wooden bees. So for this DIY, I picked up this pack of 12 wooden tags. I got them at Hobby Lobby and they were $4.99. You can find them over in the wedding section. And I picked up my calendar from the Dollar Tree. This is the farmer's market one. So all I had to do was measure out the picture on the back. I just first started by cutting out the honey picture, and then I placed my tag on top of it, cut off the excess that was hanging over the tag, and then I just attached it using a glue stick, and I grabbed some of my buffalo check ribbon. I placed that over the top portion of the picture just so that you wouldn't see that seam. I just used some hot glue and then wrapped the ribbon to the back and hot glued that down. I'm gonna tie a simple jute bow and hot glue that down to the buffalo check ribbon, and that is all you have to do for this DIY. For this DIY, I took 2 of these wooden cubes that you can pick up from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove all the stickers on there, and then I'm going to go in and paint it with my maize color chalk paint from Waverly. I'm going to paint all of the sides, and I'm just going to do one good coat on both of those blocks. Once those are dry, I'm going to hot glue them together, and I'm going to hot glue them offset so they're not just straight perfectly in a line. And then I am going to take some of the vinyl decals that I cut out with my CRICUT, and I'm just going to use these as a stencil. So I just started basically using them as stickers, and I'm placing them around my cubes in the same kind of honeycomb shape, and I just did it on 2 of the sides, kind of using some of the extra pieces to wrap around the corners. and I just continued to place those decals on there until I got it the way that I liked it. And then I'm going to take some of my parchment colored chalk paint, and I'm just going to use that to lightly dry brush over all of my cubes, all of the sides of them. And once I've gotten everything dry brushed and that parchment color is on all of the sides, I'm going to remove those vinyl decals, and it's just going to leave this cute honeycomb pattern on my blocks. And then I'll go in with some more of those adorable wooden bees and hot glue a couple of those down. And that is it for this DIY. So you can't have a bee and honey themed tiered tray or decor without some flowers. So I wanted to incorporate some sunflowers in my tier tray, and this is what I came up with. So I'm gonna take one of these tile signs that you can pick up from the Dollar Tree. The tile portion in the middle comes out really easy. I'm gonna use a vinyl decal that I cut out, and this is the transfer tape that I absolutely love. This is from Expressions Vinyl. I'll have it linked down below. I get questions about what vinyl transfer tape that I use all the time. This is it, and it's my absolute favorite. I just cut out a little Hello Sunshine using that same Four Seasons font from CRICUT Access, and I just place that down in the corner of my sign, and then I am going to reattach my frame down to the sign just using a little bit of hot glue in all of the corners. And then I'm going to take some of this white flower greenery that I had and a sunflower, and I'm just going to kind of cut those down until I get the length of them that I want. I'm going to arrange them in a corner of the sign, and I'm going to hot glue those down. I'll hot glue the sunflower right on top. I only ended up using one, and then I'll finish it off by tying a buffalo check ribbon into a bow, hot gluing that right down in the corner where the flower is, and that is it for this sunflower sign. Now for this DIY, I thought this was so much fun. I took one of my wood slices that I got from ARTEZA. I'll have those linked down below, and I just cut them in half using my miter saw in my garage. I cut out this vinyl decal using my CRICUT, and this was just a sunflower, and I sliced it in half, and then I'm just going to place that on top of the wood. Now I'll say that adding vinyl onto just bare wood is a little bit difficult, so if you want to make your life a little bit easier, add some Mod Podge to it first, and that will get the vinyl to stick down way easier than just onto a natural piece of wood. So I just line those up, and then once I have the decals onto my wood slices, I'm going to take this buffalo check ribbon and I'm going to hot glue that on the bottom portion of my wood round, and that's all you got to do for this DIY. Now for this last one, I'm going to take this little mini terracotta pot that I had from, I think it was a piece that I picked up from Michael's a long time ago, and it's just been sitting in my drawer. So I grabbed this and I'm going to paint it in my parchment colored chalk paint. Once that is completely dried, I'm going to take these picks that I picked up in the wedding section from Hobby Lobby. I'm not exactly sure what these are called, but I thought these looked perfect to go along with my bee theme, and I'm going to take a couple of those out. I'm going to place a styrofoam ball into my terracotta pot. I'll add some hot glue and put some Spanish moss on top to cover up that styrofoam so you don't see it. And then I just started adding in a couple sunflowers and then those kind of honeycomb looking picks. And that's all you got to do for this DIY. I think this looks super summery and matches perfectly with my bees, and I loved the way that this one turned out. Now I'm just going to go ahead and take my tier tray and put everything together. Now a couple of the pieces didn't fit in this particular tier tray. They were a little bit too tall. I do have a couple of tier trays that my floral jar and my cubes will definitely fit in, so really it just is going to depend on how big your tier tray is for some of these projects, but I figured I could put these to the side and kind of decorate with them, and then if I wanted to add them to a different tier tray, then I definitely could. But I just mess around with the arrangement and the placement of all of my pieces in my tier tray until it satisfies my eye, until I think that it just looks great, and that's all I do to decorate my tier tray. Alright, you guys, that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite project was in the comments down below. Again, if you're interested in my bee and honey collection of my craft kits, head over to my description box and click that link to head over to my website. Don't forget to subscribe before you guys leave. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!